Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Good Enough Gaming Podcast. This week's episode is entitled, For the Emperor. Have you ever wanted to be the commander of an army, where you get to sit in council at the castle or on the battle site working on a strategy for overcoming your foe? Have you ever wanted to amass a group of orcs to raid an encampment, or get a small group of highly trained badasses just lay waste to a gathering of necrotic robots? Well, if that tickles your fancy at all, and you like meticulous painting, we have the game for you. Today we're talking about Warhammer 40k, and we're joined by our friend Kass to shed light on the rules of the game, the investment, time and effort, and money, and the amount of fun anyone can have battling and creating within the world of Warhammer. So gear up, Adeptas. You get your measuring tapes ready and prepare for some gray nights as we deep dive into the largest tabletop game out there. Let's roll.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, Kass, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we of all the places, we actually met you at your bar when we recorded another podcast, and somehow Daryl knows fucking everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me and Daryl go a few years back for sure.
You go way back.
Yeah, I'd say way back. Yeah, in the bar industry too.
Yeah. So I can't help it. I'm a big deal, you guys. I can't help it. People know me.
He has many leather-bound books.
Can you see?
Yeah. So, obviously, we brought you here today, not just to promote your nice bar and podcast place, but also to talk Warhammer, which you were actually at GameCon as well for the giant Warhammer 40k tournament. Yeah,
it was a narrative tournament. So It's more about the story. So there's an overarching story. So when you sign up, I think we started sign-ups in March, early this year. Then you choose your factions, and then they kind of divide you into different teams, and then they separate that on the Discord into different chats, and you can all talk and you can all talk about lore and what your strategy is going to be against the other armies. So it's really cool. So they give you an overall narrative, and we were trying to defend a planet, Hostia, and then because I was on the defender side, and the other one, everyone else was trying to destroy Hostia.
Mm-hmm. So it was
how many factions were there?
That's so cool.
Well, there was only so there was 2 teams to start, but the way Play on Tabletop, their YouTube channel, the way they set it up is they give like secret invaders, and they'll tell you secretly, like they'll message you privately and tell you are, and then they'll put you into different channels, and then it's revealed later that they're part of the invader squad.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
it's like secret ninja. This is like so. This is like StarCraft
double agent
like battle with like a DM, like a Dungeons and Dragons DM, like secretly in the shadows.
Yeah, and the DMs there's a few DMs because there's all the TOs, the tournament organizers. They're all kind of the DMs pushing the narrative.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah, super fun.
And so the sign up started in March.
Yeah.
And was it like full like 100 people?
Yeah, so this is their second one because GameCon last year they were there too, but it was limited to 50 people because this is the first time Play on Tabletop ever did a tournament, and they didn't know what they were capable of. They wanted to see, work out the kinks. Even in the first one, I remember at the BMO Center, the projector broke, so they had like all these pre-recorded videos of one of the guys that Play on talking about what's happening in the battles and like part of the narrative. Right. And well, their projector broke, so they couldn't show any of the videos. So I ended up driving home. I had an extra TV in my garage, and I brought it to the BMO Center. And we hooked it all up, so they even used my TV. So these are the kind of things that happen because it was our first tournament, right? There's always those little growing pains.
But
so if you brought your TV, did you get like free entry the next time? You get like
no, they're nice enough. They gave me some shirts and dice and stuff. And,
nice.
I got to hang out with them, and I've been following them for a while. But to further your question, so that was 50 people, but at the GameCon in Edmonton, that was 100. So they doubled it this time, and the signups it started in March. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I'll sign up later or whatever. And then my friends would text me like, hey, Kass, there's like 2 spots left. Get in there now. I'm like, oh, crap.
Wow.
So
That is
I ended
crazy.
up doing it. Yeah.
Now, important questions. What faction do you play?
Yeah.
I have a few. I mainly, when I first started Warhammer, I was probably 12 years old. And I got into the hobby just painting. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just putting models together. And I think I had some
Join the club.
dwarves. Yeah, dwarves, dark elves. I didn't know what the heck I was. I had Lord of the Rings models.
Awesome.
And then when I was 13, I won a painting competition for the underage for the Lord of the Rings. So I actually got free tickets to the Two Towers theater.
sick.
Oh,
It was
shit.
awesome.
That's dating us now too.
Yeah, right. We're all excited about it. And I ended up. There are different games. There's the Lord of the Rings miniature game, then there's the Warhammer Fantasy game, and then there's the 40K. I ended up gravitating towards the 40K. I like shooting stuff. I like sci-fi, being in space, and it's just an overall more of a skirmish game. So it's a little bit more. The gameplay is a little bit smoother, and I generally like that. So I ended up getting Necrons, which they're like Tomb Kings. They're they're basically like the robot mummies. That's the best way I can describe them.
Sick.
So I got to them. I amassed a pretty good collection, and then I got out of it just out of high school. And then I didn't play Warhammer for a while. Then around COVID time, I started picking them up again. I had the time because I wasn't working, so I started picking up there. And then I got into other factions that fit more my play style. So the next one was Death Guard, which is part of the Chaos Space Marine world.
Oh, yeah.
They just worship one god instead of all 4. And that one's the Nurgle. So it's all about like disgusting pestilence, pimples, and pus. The models are crazy cool though. Like they're super detailed. And then now I just recently found my faith and went to the Imperium and got Sisters of the Battle.
Recently found God. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I found my faith. Sisters of the Battle is an all-female army. They're really like fragile. They're kind of like glass cannony, and they do a lot of damage, but they die really easily. But I always find they're really cool because they all have like a certain save in the game. We'll get into that later, but it's about their belief in the Emperor. So that's why they all have it, because they believe in him so much that they all have it. So it's all about, they're really religious and stuff. It's just really cool.
So it's a bunch of like warrior nuns.
Yeah. What it is. We call them nundums.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
What about nunchucks?
Ooh, nunchuck.
If you were to throw one,
Yeah.
Just a bunch of religious Chuck Norrises. Is that what that is? Or-
God.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Chaos Gates. So one of my few kind of exposures to the universe is I actually picked up Chaos Gate Demon Hunters on Steam, and it's like a tactics-based game, and picked it up on PlayStation, and it's a ton of fun. But like, holy shit! To your point, like the amount of lore and just like they just throw you in the deep end, and they're like, "Good luck, buddy. Figure it out."
Yeah.
And so far, like I love it. It's super cool. You mentioned like the designs of the characters and the monsters and the enemies. Like, it's pretty incredible how varied all of it is.
Oh, 100%.
And so you mentioned Warhammer and then Warhammer 40K. Like, are there two completely separate components to the Warhammer universe? Like, how does that all work?
So there's different games in the Warhammer universe. They all come from the same source material, but there is a fantasy type version, which back in the day was just called Warhammer Fantasy. So you just have guys lining up on just the way, you used to do battles way back in, 1400s. People just line up in big bricks and then they just charge. That's like, it's kind of like that.
Right.
They've now called it Age of Sigmar. It's changed a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's the 40K, which is more of a skirmish style, guns, lasers, all that other stuff. There's Kill Team, which is like kind of like a special ops unit. So you got like your 5 models and you're on a smaller board and you're kind of maneuvering that way. Then there's Necromundus, Underworld, which is more like the RPG, like kind of a D&D style. And there's
so many
more.
different arcs.
Yeah, there's more.
So
I
many.
don't know.
Yeah.
There's more. I'm probably missing a few.
So
Lord of the
basically,
Rings.
whatever like side shoot flavor you're into, Warhammer's got it.
Yeah, I mean, Games Workshop kind of has their hand in every market, like video games, books, like even comic books. The models, they're coming with a TV series. Yeah.
Oh yeah, forgot about
I'm
it.
excited.
Because like
I'm excited
Henry
for the
Cavill
series.
was part of that too, wasn't he?
He's our boy. Henry's going for it. Yeah.
Henry's going.
Our Lord and Savior.
The King of the North.
So if someone, so like obviously there's all of these things. So if you're really interested in something, like what is the best way to start Warhammer? Like, because I feel like you can't just be like, hey, I'm going to go drop $1,000 on minis and a bunch of books and like just read and try and figure this shit out. Like, what is like? How did you get started? Or how would you introduce someone to Warhammer now?
I would tell them to start small, see what they like. I mean, there's a big part of the hobby, which is painting. So if they are into that, I know a few guys that fucking hate it, and they just like get it commissioned or whatever, or just put 3 paints on and call it a day. But you know, if you're really into the hobby and you want to do that, like you want to start small. Kill Team, if you like the 40K side of things, I would say Kill Team is your best option, just because you could choose a faction amongst all the factions and see what kind of pops out at you, and then pick 10 models at most, and that's all you'd have to do. So the investment's quite small, and then you can see how mechanics work a little bit, and then you want to expand from there. Then you can go into a 40K, which is like a 2,000 point army, because each model has a point value associated to it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all played at 2K.
So for my own curiosity here, when you're talking about point systems, those big fucking 3-foot mechs that we saw, how many points are those worth?
Oh fuck! Probably 3,000 to 4,000. They might be 2,500. Don't quote me on it, because those are Warlord Titans and Warhound Titans. So those are the kind of models that you just agree with your opponent and say, "Hey, do you want to go against this?" And I say, "Yeah, of course." And then I have to just match my models and points and just try to kill it. And then he could just go.
So you would be like
unleash
your whole army just against that one thing.
Sure. Yeah. And there's other games too. Like they're called, you could just say like, hey, we're doing a 6K game. And that would take days. And so if we each had 6K, and then you could add your Warhound Titan in, and then I could add like a different type of Titan or whatever. And then we just go at it.
Holy shit.
It's like
what's a normal
bender of risk?
What's a normal point amount like for a match?
2K.
2K?
Yeah.
Okay. What is your biggest character in your army? Like, do you have something of that size or like an equivalent?
Yeah, I got in my Death Guard. So in the lore, just a little background of it, there's the Emperor, and they're his children. They're called Primarchs. They're just from his gene seed. I know I don't want to get too far.
Sounds like something Elon Musk would say.
I gave her my gene seed.
Take gene seed. So one of his sons is Mortarion, and he ended up getting corrupted by Chaos. He was a leader of the Death Guard faction, and Chaos corrupts all eventually. And Mortarion was one of the ones that fell into Chaos with his entire legion of Death Guard. So that's the one I play. So I do have a model of him, and I always use him. I don't care what the rules are for it or if they're bad. I just no, he's too cool. And he's pretty big.
That's
wow.
Sick. Love that.
Awesome.
So is the Emperor is he like a giant, or like a Titan, like in kind of the Marvel universe like size, or is he like larger than most, or is he just the ruler?
It's just a normal dude.
If any lore guys listen to this, it might rip me apart, but I think he's 9 feet tall.
Okay, so he's a larger person.
Yes.
We'll fact check later.
Yeah, originally I was picturing like Joffrey's size from Game of Thrones. He's just like just a little midget. 3 foot tall, dude.
Do as I say.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to circle back to the tournament. So the tournament at GameCon, you're saying it's like a story-based tournament. So how does one win that tournament? Is it like a team tournament? Like, is this like a sports tournament? Like how, like, I understand if you were just like, you know, a bracket tournament where you're just having battles and you kind of work to the end, but like, how does a team tournament work?
So just the sake of making numbers easy, because I don't know how many invaders went in or whatever. So it was 100 people, and then each team is 50 players. And then we had, I know you came and saw me, Daryl. You know how there was rows of tables?
Yes. Yep.
So I think there was 5 rows. It could be 6. I can't remember. But then we just divided. Let's say it's 5, and we went 10 on each of the rows. And then the opponents also went 10 on each of the rows, and then we just all played right down the row. So say there was 10 tables across, and then that's when we'd find our opponent. Now, every win we'd have, we get points, because that's how you win a game. You have to score points.
Okay.
Then we submit our scores, and then they tally it up. So say like I was on table 2, and my team mostly won all their games. So we're going to tally up all our points for that table. Then they're going to tally up all our points for the other table. And at the end of the tournament, so 4 rounds, they're going to take the total of points, and then they'll decide the winner then. Does that make sense?
Tell you who won?
Okay.
Yeah, fucking invaders.
Oh!
Yeah.
Hey, you pulled your weight. I know your record was good. We talked about that.
Yeah. I can't.
So then from that, do they just take the person that scored the most points on their team and like they're like the MVP? Like, I don't know how else to.
No, so there's no like best overall or best general. It's really, really about the community and bringing people together, which I love about this tournament. It's not so competitive and cutthroat. Even though like even competitive tournaments aren't as like I'm underplaying it, but it's not that cutthroat. But it's more about like best sport, best painted, best person that evolve themselves in the narrative. So like, what was your army fit? Did you make a story for your army? Did it fit what we were trying to do? And that's the kind of votes that we did, and the TOs voted for, and then they gave out the prizing. Yeah, it was
That's
awesome.
cool, man. That's
For a community event, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
How often do these tournaments go throughout the year? Like you yourself, is it something like, do you commit to 4 tournaments a year, 5 tournaments a year, or are they so big and I mean, they sound involved and lore heavy. I mean, is it just like a one time a year thing because of the size? Like, how does that work?
Well, this one in particular is only once a year. It is that narrative one, and it is put on by the Play on Tabletop YouTube channel. They're just out from Aberystwyth.
Okay.
So that they just started doing that, and there's been a few narrative tournaments here in Calgary as well. I haven't joined those.
Okay.
But in terms of how much tournaments I do, I try to get at least one a month.
Oh wow! Okay,
Way more than I expected. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and they're always on, right? So it's usually a weekend. Just in May, we just did the Alberta Classic, which is probably the biggest one in Calgary, and that's 6 rounds. So that's that's long.
How long does a round take?
3.5 hours to
yeah. Yeah, that's what I asked him when we were and I was like, okay, do you need food? Do you
always.
Do you need support?
Do you need a change of diaper?
Please go. I need a roll. Please change me. Yeah. I'll tell you too. I'm one of those guys too in the tournaments. I always have snacks in my bag, and I always have deodorant.
Oh yes,
wow.
Smart.
Man of the people.
Yeah, it's those are key essentials.
I may be a sweat, but I will smell good.
You will enjoy my sweat.
No, we always comment on this because we saw this at GameCon last year. When you roll up to a tournament, how big is your bin of Warhammer stuff?
How many bins are needed? How
many bins? Like how many liters of bin space are we talking here?
Like for what I bring?
Yeah.
Oh. I usually have a little bit of prep the night before. We submit our lists. Usually like the Thursday is the deadline, and then the TOs look over just in case there's any cheating, any illegal list builds or whatever, because people make mistakes and it's a complicated game. But once that's submitted, then usually the night before I'll I'll set up my army, what the models I have. I'll count it once, count it twice, count it 3 times, make sure all of them are there because I don't want to show up to an event and not have those models. And I go to my opponent and say like, hey man, I'm sorry, I forgot. Can we? He'd be like, no. And that's very fair. So I set that all up, and I have like this little, I got it from IKEA. It's called a Kavissel. It's for office, just for office paper and stuff, but it's a big metal tin that has little drawers in it. I magnetize the bottom of my miniatures on the bases, and I slide them in that. And then that fits in a perfectly good cooler bag. So I just have this like little cooler bag, and it has pockets. Yeah.
Genius, man.
fucking 5-headed the Warhammer experience. Mind blowing right now.
Yeah. Well, those are those initial investments. You could go to like, there's a bunch of people like, I think Magnarack is a company, and they sell a case and it has all these magnetized shells and stuff, and that thing costs like $500. And I'm like, no, this is
I'm gonna make my own out of IKEA
shit myself.
Yeah.
Well, I remember we talked to was Dave. Was it Dave? Yeah. So we had Dave come by.
Shout out to Dave.
Shout out Dave. And he had I can't remember the brand, but he had like a Pelican case. Yeah. And he had some sweet minis, and he showed us a ton of stuff. But I was like, fuck, like that case itself is like a couple $100. Like,
oh, easily.
It's fancy.
Yeah, it was nice, but I was like, that would get expensive if you did that for everything.
Oh, for sure. I have a few of those ones too, but not Pelican. It's like the Warhammer brand ones. But I find when you're storing miniatures into foam, it allows for opportunity for them to break, and they break. But the coolest thing, heads up play that you could ever do in a tournament is if you have a few that are broken, or like say a whole unit like has a few broken spears, you kind of can get in the opponent's head like, oh, this guy clearly plays a lot. Like they're always broken or whatever. And they're like, oh shit, he's probably really good. Right. And it's not the case, but
I just dropped
it is the case. The problem was the case like that.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Okay. Just mind fucking the opponent.
Always.
On that note, what constitutes like a good Warhammer player? Like what makes you good at Warhammer?
Having a winning record is usually pretty good. I would say type play, there's always going to be takesies, backsies just because it's so complicated of a game where you're talking to the opponent like, oh, hey, I forgot about this. Do you mind? And then they say, oh yeah, of course. Like nothing's changed. And usually, honestly, I don't think I've met one opponent that wouldn't let it back or like a takesies, backsies. Because again, we do make mistakes. And again, this is a 6-round tournament. We're in round 6. We just did 24 hours of Warhammer,
man. You're like hour 26.
Yeah, let it happen. And so when it comes to being a good war, it's about that. Obviously you're in that winning record. You know your rules. You know your army's rules, and then really the opponent's rules. So you kind of know what they're doing as well. So you can counteract and it's very matchup dependent, right? So I would play with say my sisters, my nuns. I would play them differently against say orcs. I'd play them differently than against like a regular like a Space Marines or something like that. I'd play that matched up differently. So that's because I know the knowledge of what they're trying to do, and then I know what I'm doing. So that's really when you get to that next level of Warhammer play.
That's some Art of War shit.
It's like Magic, right? It's like having like different deck sets in Magic or something like that.
Okay,
that kind of
sense. We talked about the minis a lot, and last year in the one in Calgary had tables that looked completely different and were like wild and huge towers and things like that. And this tournament had sort of more like a thematic. Lots of the tables were the same, had sort of the same implements on it. In a tournament, is the provider responsible for setting up the tables with all of the terrain and like pieces on the top? Or are the players like bringing pieces and implements as like buildings and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, the TOs are always responsible for that because the players pay their tickets and then they show up and everything should be ready to go for them for the tournament.
Oh, okay, that's all laid out already.
Has there ever been like a tournament where like I think I just go back to sports because it's what I know. If you are like the home team, like you get to put up your terrain or something. Like is that a thing people do at all, or is that just like for like fun games you play with your friends?
So. Yes, most of these tournaments that are run are sponsored kind of by certain teams. So I'm on a team called Bloodbath Tactics, and that we're one of the top in. Yeah, actually, so that's my YouTube. Oh wow, I'm losing it. Bloodbath and Beyond is actually our name.
Nice.
Yeah. I was like, my name's better than that. What am I saying? Yeah.
That is
Even
better.
Yeah. So we're, if we haven't here in Calgary, we haven't done a tournament, but there's other teams like there's Team Badger. They're really, really good. Wasted Potential is another team. It's a hilarious name.
That's a good one.
They host a few tournaments, and it is their responsibility, but like to set up all the terrain and go there. But what we generally do is a store called Ogre's Den in the Northeast, and they have just the best setup for 40K players. They have about, I don't know, what would that be, 30 some tables, and they all have terrain underneath and mats. So really at the end of the day, Ogre's Den will supply all that, but it's up to the team to set up the layouts and do all that on all the tables to make it fair.
Wow. Okay, that's nuts.
Shout out to them because that's legit.
It's like
That's
a whole
awesome.
underworld of
Yeah.
competition I didn't know about that existed in the city. This is crazy.
Yeah, because the tournament this year, like I said before, like a lot of the tables had similar vibe, and then you were talking about how everything was kind of laid out, and it did seem like per row there was like a theme, like you were hitting almost like a different area of the planet that you were defending. So I did think that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were trying to do. And I don't know if you saw it in kind of the front tables as you walked into the area, but they had like kind of like more like corridors and stuff. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's supposed to simulate a ship, because then you go up into space and now you're fighting in a ship, and there's different rules with that.
Man, that's so fucking
That's
cool.
crazy.
I know, right?
Are we about to get into Warhammer?
No, I can't afford that shit.
Wild. Okay, that's so cool.
Holy.
I just want the minis. Honestly, I wish there was like a cheaper,
like if one of you
affordable
wanted to
version.
play, I will paint for you. Like
That's all I want. That's the thing. Like that's my point of entry, where it's just like I wish I could get the 3 foot tall like thing for an affordable price, just because that's all I want to do. I just want to paint that thing. Like,
Well, and there's tons of ways of trying to make it more affordable too. There's a lot of people with 3D printers now because they're all a little bit more affordable for the consumer. Some of my models are 3D printed. I'm actually leaning towards more of my models becoming 3D printed as opposed to buying from GW. Just because the prices have gone up astronomically, even since I started playing. I remember one box when I was, again, like 13 or 14 was like $30, and now it's like close to $80 to $110.
Whoa.
So it's a massive jump. And and of course, it makes the initial investment scary, right? But if you got some friends and have 3D printers, they'll cut it down like almost 80%.
wow. Okay. Good to know.
Now, buying a box, is that like a full army? Like how many pieces comes in are there like starter packs? I'm thinking like Pokemon cards. Like, can you get a starter deck and then like expansion decks for that army? Like how many pieces are there? How does that shake out?
Oh, totally. So there is what they do for starters, and that's their best deal if you're going to get the GW models, because you're going to get kind of a little bit of everything. They're called Combat Patrol, and they kind of set it to a point at like 500 points. There's a few boxes that are the Battle Force ones that are 1,000 points, but you'll get your best dollars or pennies to the dollar on your models that way, and that is the best way to get into an army. Like for my nuns, the sisters, I bought the Battle Force one to start off, so I had some bones into my army, and then I would move in, start buying individual ones that I wanted.
I just fell down a rabbit hole of
Kyle opened up the Google.
oh my god.
now is that obviously, like you talked about being a good Warhammer player? Is that like part of it, where it's just like, hey, that's the wrong mini? Like you're claiming it's this character, but that's like clearly the wrong thing. Like, do people ever just like do a swap just because you have to, or is that like a no-no? Is that a
I think if you're just doing it in the garage and having beers, I don't think anybody cares. It's between you and your opponent, really.
Right.
But when it comes to tournaments, you always should be talking to the TO, the tournament organizer, prior to the event and prior to you submitting your list. That, hey, are you okay if I use these models as this? For the most part, TOs are awesome. Like we have a few great ones here in Calgary that are awesome for it, and they're reasonable. Like I can't just say like, hey, I want this Warlord Titan, and this is going to be this little Space Marine. Like they're like, no, right? They're completely reasonable, and then they allow those models in, and it allows for people to play, right? Because it is an expensive hobby, right?
Right.
And they want people to play.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Okay. Side note: there's, sorry, I'm deep diving here. There are like upgrade packs where you can change like the weaponry and like the pauldrons and like the accents to the minis.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
so
Dave was mentioning that
cool.
Dave, when we talked to Dave, he was talking about how he had customized specific minis, and then there was one where he had like Frankenstein, however many together to make his like murder death race truck thing.
Yeah, it was like a war machine vehicle. Yeah,
and it was just, I was like, that's the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. Like,
oh my god,
it's so cool. And some people I know a few people that just like buy a truck at Walmart, like a little toy truck. And in Orks army, that's like one of their transports. It's called a truck, but it's spelled TRRUUK. Because they're Orks. It's a truck. Yeah. And yeah. And they'll just like they'll paint up that one, right? And they'll just make it like put a little grimdark paint on it and make it look all dusty and cool and war ridden, and they're like, this is my truck, and like, you just bought that from Walmart.
It's like, it's a Tonka. I can see the
Yeah.
Tonka letter.
Yeah, I can
The
see
Tonka
that.
letter's still there. Yeah, Tonka. Yeah.
What?
Oh, Jordan, okay, we'll go one more question and then we'll take a break.
Just talking about the truck, and I remember Dave's model as well. Is there a model or a vehicle or something that stands out to you that you saw at a tournament or from a friend that is like the coolest thing you've ever seen somebody build?
Yeah.
And it can be your own too. You know, if there's something you got.
Yeah, pump your own tires.
Yeah, there's many more better painters than I am. But the one guy, I don't know if you guys saw it when you were at GameCon or came by the tables, he was at the tournament. He made this army for the tournament. He 3D printed almost everything. It was an orc army, but the theme was Star Wars. So he made every single orc a stormtrooper because they're terrible at shooting. The little grots, like they have like those little footmen that come around. They're called grots. He just made them imperial officers. The big hero for the orc army is his name is Gaskell Dothraka, and he made him, but put him on a tauntaun with his belly cut open and like another. I forget what he else had, but something was coming out of it. And then
it's Han. Was it Han coming out?
I think it might have been actually, or somebody, because the guys was hiding in there, right? Like, or Luke was in there or something, right? Then he made Darth Vader into like an orc boss. The Emperor was like it's called a weird boy, but they're psychic sorcerers. They call them weird boys because it's weird to the orcs. And he just made him into Emperor Palpatine. And then the coolest thing of it, though, and this is where, to answer your question, they have a thing called a Stompa. It's just a big mech thing, just kind of stomps around and be's an idiot. But they made it into, he 3D printed into a Rancor.
Whoa.
Added lights to it, like a little caution thing on the top of its head.
What?
Added a sound box into it and got the actual MP3 of the Rancor screaming. From the movies.
Man.
Yeah, and then he made a remote for it that kind of was like a little orky. It just looked like a computer board essentially, but it just had a switch on and off, and that's how he started the sound. So he would just like sit there like this and just turn it on, and then it would like rah. Oh man. So it was so cool, and cool. He did this. He did this too. So you guys actually, if you guys want to get into Warhammer, here's a way to do it. He is donating this army to charity. The whole point of it was to donate it to charity. That's what he wanted to do. He invested his own money, his own time, the STLs for the 3D printing and all the resin that he put in, and all the painting too. It's going to go on raffle in November. So if anyone wants to sign up, it's on Nova Charity. It's going to go to, I think it goes to cancer, MS, and one other thing. I can't remember off the top of my head. And all proceeds of those ticket sales are going towards that. And then the person winning that ticket is going to win this army, which is just nuts. And he's coming on to my podcast, Bloodbath Tactics, next week to talk about it. He's also going to be playing on Tabletop in August.
Good for him, man. That's wicked.
So you'll see it live. You'll see the army live on YouTube pretty soon in action.
Wow.
Every year we talk to people at GameCon, and the more we talk to people, we're like, people are so fucking cool.
Right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, that is unreal.
So he won Best Painted and Best Army. That
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
That makes sense.
Deserve
Respect.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was. It's unreal. Yeah, I know how much work he put into it. It was like tirelessly, like days and days and days, try to get it ready for this tournament. And
That's
wild.
yeah, he's an amazing man.
Okay, so we're gonna take just a short break here, catch our breath. We're gonna cut to segment, and then we'll be back to talk more Warhammer.
Cool.
This week's segment is wrong answers only. Trevor, lead us in.
What?
I don't know.
It's like, why am I leading this in?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you gotta do nothing.
Yeah. Wrong answers only.
Okay, so we're back after that wonderful intro. Just for anyone tuning in now, somehow the concept is simple: wrong answers only. I'm going to give the guys a prompt, some sort of situation, and they're going to give me wrong answers. Probably the worst possible answer. This week's wrong answers only is actually themed. It's on theme for today's episode. So the prompt is: just announced by Games Workshop, this is the latest faction to be released for Warhammer 40K.
I have a good answer, and I think
The Teletubbies.
I think I
New
have one that would
alien
actually
race.
be. I have one that would actually like print money. I think would be legit. I put the Autobots.
Oh, that'd be
Okay, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
You did,
that's
like
sick.
you see like Magic doing their Lord of the Rings and like their Star Wars shows. Like if you did like an Autobots Decepticons Warhammer, like I'm fucking in.
yeah,
Yeah.
easy peasy.
Yeah.
And if the
Everybody
minis
knows.
transformed, like that would be wild.
Game changer. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Daryl would shit in all spark if that.
Yeah, probably.
So I'll piggyback on
That's a hot
Trevor's.
shot, Trevor. That's a hot shot.
I'll piggyback on Trevor's good one, and then I've got a funny bad one. But I'm surprised that there hasn't been a Warhammer StarCraft crossover with like Terrans and Zerg and everything else. Like that might be the way to get me in, man.
Yeah.
They
It's
actually
like
copied.
inspiration.
They copied. Yeah, StarCraft copied Warhammer.
I know.
There's a whole thing.
But
Oh,
Is that, I was gonna say that is that like a deep like
an
that's a
actual
deep cut thing.
Yeah. The Zergs are like Tyranids, and then Space Marines are like the Tyrans.
yeah, they look
And
super similar. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, there is one already.
The original.
The original.
You went in the opposite order, Jordan.
It's
I
funny
know,
because
I'm sorry.
people won't see this, but if you're watching on YouTube, the original YouTube cover art for this episode, I had a Space Marine, and in the background, I couldn't find like a good Warhammer character, so I put a Hydralisk, and I was like, "Fuck it, close enough." And I was like, "I'm sure someone who's deep into Warhammer would be so offended by that."
Gonna be pissed.
This offends me. Yeah. Yeah, it's kidding.
hey, all press is good press, right, Trev?
Exactly.
True. Well, Daryl, Kyle, you
PlayStation's 5
got any? Right, and Kass, you got any bad ones?
Yeah, I got a bad one. I was thinking the audience in Wii Sports, like the ones that
It's just this like
I roll
horde
for
army
clap.
that like just swarms.
Fucking the amiibo. What was that? The amiibo army.
yeah, the Amiibos, yeah.
Oh,
And then
God.
I thought a cool one would be pretty sweet, and I'd like to see it on the tables. Maybe like some kind of zombie Mario Brothers,
That'd be cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
right?
I like
Throwing the
that
fireballs and the mushroom. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm into that. That's cool.
It's all about the mashups.
That
Yeah,
one would be like
Mhm.
Pikmin. Just a bunch of
Just all your color coded Pikmin.
just a bunch of Pikmin.
You just use your pop models. There you go.
Yeah,
Well,
it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a good
Okay.
one here. Kyle, sorry, before you go, I had another good one here. Another great mashup. We got to work with Disney here. The Princess Battle Unit, the combat unit. Just Disney princesses.
Oh man.
I don't know about the
like
the small
sniped by Mulan or Merida.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, that'd be sweet.
Cinderella just throws a slipper at you, or
Well, we talked about warrior nuns, but I think we got to replace those with some Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
yes,
100%.
Yeah, that would totally work.
I mean, that's got to work.
Yeah.
Okay. I got one. Little out of left field here. Texas sorority cult.
oh my lord,
Oh, what the fuck?
You might as well have just said the insane clown posse, Kyle. Like, what?
Yeah.
No, but like, you know, those like scary like sorority video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Woo. That's like the South. Like, if you don't know what Kyle's talking about, watch
that's a
South Park.
pie.
Yeah. Woo woo on you.
Just a bunch of woo girls on the battlefield.
Just screaming at you on the battle.
Yeah.
Did you have some drinks last night? There was a few refreshments, yes.
I'm powered by hangover.
Yeah.
you fit in well here, Kass.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah.
All right. Any other ones?
I had a great one here. This is podcast relevant. Just a band of like your local gym teachers just running at you with dogs.
Various sports equipment.
Yeah, just a bunch of mishmash shit out of like the gym storage room, like
Wearing,
lacrosse
like,
sticks and like
Football shoulder pads and a helmet.
I was gonna say
it's such a
this-
Casey Jones.
No,
It's
this
a
gets
bunch of
better.
Casey Jones.
You get a battle of LARPers. Like, that's it. It's just like everything
there you
is.
go.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Everything
awesome.
Everything is styrofoam based. Like nothing is real.
So you're playing with miniatures who are in cosplay.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
shitty cosplay.
Yeah.
With styrofoam
sword.
weapons. Yeah.
That's a good way to escape reality right there. Like the extra layer of fantasy.
Yeah, I'm gonna LARP as a LARPer playing.
Okay, that reminds me.
Full
Have you guys
meta.
seen?
Yeah.
There's a music video from Red Fang that they go.
Everybody knows that band.
Okay, they drive by and they make fun of a bunch of LARPers who are like practicing their LARPing in the park. But then the guys run and they grab their like real like swords and stuff from their car and like kill the Red Fang guys. It's fucking hilarious.
That's
will find it
hilarious?
because
That's hilarious.
It's so funny.
Oh,
Kyle has a weird sense of humor.
Yeah.
It's just
chopping them up.
Weird music video.
All right, cool. I'll see it.
loves death metal, so we just
Oh, okay.
run with it.
All those days looking after two kids at home, and his mind goes into a dark place.
We're like stoner metal, but it's fine.
Okay,
I think this is it. But
Doesn't matter.
fine.
good segment.
Moving on.
I thought so. I thought you guys
That was
appreciate
awesome.
that one.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna make you watch this quick.
No, we're moving on,
All right.
Kyle.
Moving
Be
on.
that way. Okay. So coming back to the main meat and potatoes of it, Kass, are you playing any games yourself right now that aren't Warhammer, or is Warhammer life?
Yeah, you know, I played a lot of video games too. Like Witcher 3 is probably my favorite game of all time. I've beaten that, I don't know, a handful of times, and
Nice.
various other games like Skyrim, like those. But I haven't played any new ones. Like I haven't played the new God of War for some reason. But really, not for some reason. So here it is. I did just open up a bar about a year ago. It is my bar, so my time's kind of limited. So I spend most of my time with that, and I also have, when I was building this bar, I also had a kid. So now I have a 2-year-old and a bar and Warhammer. So I can only divvy out so much time. So I had to sacrifice other games.
I feel that.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it was when it was New Year's this year, when I was like kind of just getting kind of everything back together. I committed to those 3 things: business, family, Warhammer, are really all I'm doing.
And that's totally fair.
Good priorities.
Yeah,
that's a good layout.
what's the order?
My wife hates it.
Yeah. Let's not get him in trouble.
That's a trap for sure.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
So we've talked about like some of the logistics and some of the fun parts about the game. I'm interested because like I went out there and I saw you playing Kass and like kind of before the battle's happening. So I got to see the setup stage, which I've never seen before ever. I've seen some people playing live, but like we've walked by and people have tape measures. There are little like other little gems or dice or like other things laid out on the mat. Like what do you have to set up before you can play? And then like, what are you trying to do to win?
Okay.
How do you Warhammer?
All right.
Yeah, basically.
So there's usually a set of rules written by GW. They change it, every six to a year, just to kind of keep the game fresh. But basically, what you need is a table, 44 by 60. You don't need a mat. You could use your kitchen table. It doesn't matter. But you do need terrain. And terrain is just L-shaped. So you could even get cardboard pieces together and make it a little L like this and play with that. Obviously, for thematic reasons and the rule of cool, you kind of want like ruined buildings and because they've been bombarded by missiles and other shots and stuff. So getting those terrain out, then there is objective markers. So this is how you win the game. So in the 44 by 60, there's usually 5 markers set up, and you score points if you control said marker. And how you control it is having one of your miniatures within 3 inches of it, and then it's said to be yours. So then at the end of your turn, I control 3. Well, each one's 5 points, so that's 15 points at the end of my turn. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Then there's to get a little bit more deeper into it, there's also secondary objectives as well. So they'll tell you like, hey, kill a vehicle to score extra points, or like kill a character, score extra points. And how you're building a list is based on, can I play a good secondary game and keep my objective controlling too? Like that's the balance.
Sweet. So you have cards in the middle of the game and those are the objectives and they're random or?
Yeah, they do that now. So it wasn't like that like probably 2 years ago, but now they do the cards. So you shuffle your deck, and that's kind of your secondary mission. So it happens randomly. So it's a little bit more fair for you and the opponent. And then you draw 2 at the beginning of your turn. Like, I drew kill a vehicle, kill a character. Okay, I know I need to do this turn, but I also need to control these objectives, and this is how I'm going to score on my turn.
Gotcha.
And so how does a turn work?
So it goes. It's a turn-based game. It's 5 turns. You determine who goes first by rolling a dice, and whoever wins the dice roll goes first. There's no argument you don't get to choose or nothing like that. So if I go first, then there's 5 battle rounds now, and then if I'm at the top of the battle round, and then my opponent's at the bottom of the battle round, and then it goes to the battle round 2, and then that's how we keep going.
Right.
The game is still kind of favored for going first, but they've really shored up a lot of things to go second. You can still win the game.
Okay.
And how a turn works is you do like kind of upkeep stuff like management points and stuff, and then you go into movement, and that's where the tape measures come out. So each model generally has a movement characteristic. Your most basic one is 6 inches for an infantry model, so they would just move 6 inches whatever way you want. After the movement, then you go to shooting. So then you kind of want to move your guys so you can see, because there's the terrain will block the line of sight. So then you want to move your guys out so you can see something and then shoot it to potentially kill it, or maybe just chip damage or just do a little bit to it and deal with it later. And then it goes into the charging phase, which is you charging into combat. And then there's a combat phase, and then there's the end of the turn.
Okay.
That's
Damn.
cool.
I hope that was simple enough.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of dice. Like you have a bag of dice as you're there. What are you rolling dice for? Like, is it D&D style? Like, are you rolling for damage? Like when you're doing certain things with characters, or like, is it a set amount? Like when you go to attack with things.
So yeah, everything's with D6s. Like D&D would be like D8s, D12s, and everything else. We just use D6s, and it determines hitting, wounding, and damage, or pretty much anything. Like they'll tell you roll a dice and this is what happens. Okay. How it works is if I have a ballistic skill, so that's your shooting value. If it says I have a ballistic skill of 3+, that means I need 3 or better with 1 dice. There usually is an attack characteristic as well. So saying like say there's 2 as my attack character. So that means I have 2 shots with a gun of a ballistic skill of 3 up. So I need to roll 2 dice and hit 3 and up on both to hit you. And then it goes in. And then it goes into a wound roll, which is like, okay, you hit the model, but do you actually do anything to it? Like, is he tough enough? Can he stand it? That's determined based on the strength of the weapon and the toughness of the model, of the character that you're shooting.
Okay.
And if they're tougher than your strength, you have to get a 5 and up, which is harder to get. But 6s always do it. 1s always miss.
Okay.
So it's kind of crits and fails. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you go into damage, and usually they'll say like, oh, it deals 1 damage or 2 damage or whatever. But there's things that say like D6 damage or D6 plus 1 damage. And that's when you have to roll determined damage there.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
It's a lot of dice to roll.
Yeah. Well, I had a bag, and I was like, okay, you must have to roll a shitload of dice at times here. Like,
yeah, in the army I was playing, I don't know why I do it to myself, but this is a really good unit, and they're cool. They're called arcoflagellants. They're basically just like mindless girls that they failed the emperor, but they just like throw them into this experiment. So they just like ripped off their arms and put like flails on them. But
sick.
Yeah, it's cool. But like that's why they're cool. But they do. There's 10 of them in a unit, and they each have 6 attacks. So I'm rolling 60 dice when I'm attacking somebody, and I'm sitting there like, fuck. Like, okay, here's 10, 10, 10, and then they get like, if I roll a 6, it counts as an extra one. So I'm like, fuck. Okay, throw those back in, roll that, and then I go to try to wound them, and I could re-roll that. So I'm like, shuffle them back up again, and it's just like. I could see why I would go to time a lot, like in the 3 or 4 hours with an army like that, because I'd be like rolling this, and I have 3 of those units, so it's just.
Oh my god!
But they're good.
They're really good. Develop like a camera app or something like for Warhammer that's just like, okay, just count all the dice for me. Like, does it hit or like do I do damage? Like, just figure it out for me.
Oh, for sure. That'd make it easier. Like, okay, I only need that many. Okay, let's go. Yeah.
So when you talk about them, like, so a unit. When you're building an army, do you have to build it as a unit, or in a turn, do you have to move them as a unit, or can you just like scatter,
spread?
No, they are unit based. So the models, it depends on the model too. Like most characters are by themselves, hanging out, fucking shit up somewhere, or they're attaching themselves to a unit. There's a lot of units like in case of orcs, which. I love orcs. I think they're such a cool lore there, but I would never get into them because you have to paint like 120 like boys, and I just don't ever want to do that. So like because each unit is like 20 models, like, and then that's just one unit, and then you have to move that too in a game. Like I'd probably just throw the tape measure in frustration.
Well, that was your opponent when I came and checked out. That guy had like so many things, and I was like, all right. That's why I was confused. That's why it's nice to know the point system, because I was like, that guy has like 5 times as many units as you do. Like, how is this gonna work? Like,
crush them.
Crush them.
Yeah, just they're weaker, right? But there's more of them, so like they kind of win on weight of dice. So they roll a lot of dice, and statistically speaking, you should be able to wound something. You have a lot more of it. So
right. Fair enough.
Shotgun technique. Yeah, spray and pray.
Yeah.
Spread.
Got a good spread.
Okay.
Sorry, Bill Burr, can't help it. It's too funny.
They got me.
So, what are all the ways to win a battle? Like, do you have to wipe out the other army completely? Do you just have to control the areas? Like, or is it like a combination? Like, when is it over?
So it's over at the end of round 5. That's when you're done, or when they call time. But you usually can make it in 3 hours. But it's determined by those point system of the primaries and secondaries, and who has the more points wins it. You could totally win by not having models though. So if it's called being tabled when they wipe you out, right? So say they wipe me out, but I scored more points in rounds 1, 2, 3, 4. And in round 5, there's no chance of you ever scoring, say, plus 20 or plus 15. Like, say I was 15 above them, and you can't do it, then I still win. I don't have to have my models there.
Nice.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Now, I'm going to bring it back to kind of the beginning when we were talking about the Discord for GameCon and getting into the tournaments and everything. Is there a Warhammer like Calgary Discord or Alberta Discord? How is that community as a whole? If like, is it pretty active and is it nice?
It is nice. There is guidelines to them. There's a few. There's even faction focused ones as well. So I'm in, say, like the Death Guard one, the Sisters one, and the Necron one, because those are my 3 armies I play. So I'm part of said community. And then you always could throw in your questions on there too, because again, the game is complicated. I'm like, hey, does this actually work? Like, how does this work? And I swear to God, like somebody's always on. Like somebody's always answering. I don't know if it's usually, you know, you can probably pick like 10 people that are usually the same people always answering those stuff. But there's also a Team Canada one, because there is a Team Canada for Warhammer, 16 players.
Nice.
Whoa.
But they allow other people in it because it's a good resource for people as well. You do have to pay for it, but it's like $2-3, but it does go in towards like their accommodations at tournaments, and because there's a big tournament happening in October I think in Belgium. And they're going, so like they have to raise some funds, and it does subsidize a little bit for them. So I support them that way because I have friends that are in Team Canada, so like I want to see them go.
It's crazy.
When do you get to play for Team Canada? When's that happening?
When I get better, I gotta. Well, I don't know. I gotta put a little bit more time into it. I gotta get a little obsessed because there's an online version as well, guys. So it's actually a lot cheaper. It's $20 on Steam. It's called TTS, Tabletop Simulator, and you can download all the mods and actually play the game that way. I think it takes away from the game because you're sharing a narrative and you're making a narrative with a player and rolling dice, and that's the whole aspect of it, the very social aspect. It's still fun. It also is really good too because it kind of came around COVID time is when this happened because people couldn't go hang out with each other. So
That's right.
They made this TTS game, or a TTS version in it, and there's tournaments for that as well. But if I were to join Team Canada, I think I'd always, I'll try a couple years here. But if you ever did, you'd have to be playing that, with them at least. I think they require at least 2 games a week or 1 game a week. I don't know what the requirements is, but you can do it on TTS. So you can play with some of the best players in the world, and then they do skirmishes all the time. Because team tournaments are kind of where it's at. But they do skirmishes all the time. Like say, hey, Team Ireland, you want to get some people and just do a little fun tournament? And then we'll keep the data within ourselves, and we'll not spread out the data, like how matchups work and stuff. And then that's their knowledge that they can then bring to an actual tournament.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's wicked.
That's wild.
That's a really good point of entry too. If you're like, I don't just want to paint stuff, I want to learn to play. That's a really affordable way to enter the whole thing. Totally.
Yeah, TTS is a really good resource, and if for example, there's an army called AdMech, and they their best model are called actually I have no idea what they're really called. We call them chicken walkers just because they just look like that. But for one of those models, it's like $80.
Leg day.
Yeah, well, they do look like they skip leg day, but they're just long, like the whole fucking. Anyways, but they're 80 points, and then most armies are competitive versions of them require 12 of them. So who's going to spend that money? So then that's okay, that's just a TTS army. Nobody's going to do that. Your TTS meta is going to be a little bit different than real meta because it's way more affordable.
I like the idea of off-season training teams against teams on TTS just to learn strategy and kind of work out the kinks as a group. That's super, super cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool. And then they share it with us too, within the Discord. And it's good information for us, and then we can then apply it to our games in the future. It's a really good resource to have.
I just imagine a training a Rocky training montage in the background of TTS, and then someone close up painting a mini, reading a Warhammer book.
I feel like I would look like the guy from the World of Warcraft player from South Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
So just out of pure curiosity, obviously there's this world tournament in the fall. Where does someone watch that? Obviously I'm not gonna just fly to Belgium to go watch a Warhammer tournament. How does someone see something like that if they're interested?
I think don't quote me on it.
Guessing
who it is?
Stream?
It's Twitch live stream. Yeah, I think it's Wargame Live.
Okay.
I think they're called. Yeah, they'll live stream and they'll have a commentator too, like any kind of sporting event. Like they'll have a
It's
person
amazing.
commentating, but there'll be like a way, like there'll be so there's the tables say 50 feet from them, so they wouldn't be able to hear, and they can commentate while it's streaming.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So they
for
can
the
talk
viewers.
about like the strategy without just like giving away shit. That's super cool.
It also corrects like errors too, right? Because I'm like, hey, that guy didn't do that. Do you want to go check? Or I think they made a rule wrong or whatever. So when you're on camera, it's nerve wracking, but it's also, a couple hundred people's eyes are on you, right? So
That's cool.
That makes it a little different.
Keeps things fair.
Keeps it honest, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a recent tournament, and some guy was playing the nuns, and he won the tournament, but on camera he was like caught. And I guess like he has a bad reputation for his cheating, and he ended up, losing the title, losing everything on that.
Wow.
And they put a whole blurb on like what he did, and because I played the nuns, I understand what he did, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's just a dice game, man. Like I know competitive is great, but like it's still.
It's a dice game.
I'm playing toy soldiers, and I just want to play with my toy soldiers.
Yeah. That's fair.
Now, you talked about your podcast briefly. Where can people find that?
We're all on YouTube, and it's only on YouTube. I don't do any audio oldies right now. But what it is I bring in some of the members of the community that just want to shoot the shit and talk Warhammer. We have a podcast studio in my bar, and so we're just getting beers. We're getting service the entire time, and we're having beers and talking. But we are talking competitive Warhammer and how to make anyone who's interested in the particular faction we're talking about, how they become a better player as well. And here's the neat tricks that we do, because I probably play at least 2 games a week if I can, right? Or sometimes I play 6. Like it depends on what it is, but I put a lot of hours into it, and I can make up that error or the curve for somebody else who wants to get in by just listening to this and like, hey, these errors happened already for me. Maybe you wouldn't make that mistake in the future.
Right.
That's super cool.
That's a really cool resource, because it's such a daunting thing to get into. Like we've all admired it and talked about it, and that's kind of where we all end up. Is like, this is really cool.
Where do you begin?
But how the hell do you jump in, right? So like, if somebody can listen to experts and like seasoned veterans, that's a really cool resource for people.
Listening to this feels like when Jordan first got told about like D&D.
Yeah.
And like his eyes just like glazed over.
Yeah,
Where do
for
I
real.
begin?
And now you're down the rabbit hole in D&D.
Well, I sure am. But
Yeah.
You got Jordan started.
Yeah.
We had Jordan playing Baldur's Gate, so that's a start.
Oh, okay.
He's got his training wheels on.
Baldur's Gate is cool as shit. I have had a lot of fun with that.
So speaking of video games,
Yes.
as a Warhammer person, are you like pre-ordered Space Marine? Are you looking forward to it? Is that
Does that fall in the Warhammer category of your 3 parts of life?
Oh
Or is
yeah,
this like
no,
a-
I would sacrifice models to play that game. Yeah, we're not hobbying.
okay?
Did you guys play that
Hell
King
yeah.
Con?
yes.
It's fucking awesome, hey?
Oh my god, it was so good.
So good.
I can't
I
believe
only
there's
played for like 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
I don't even like shooting games or whatever. And I was like, I'll play this. Like, this is fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's class systems, co-op campaign. There's I think there's verses as well online.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
so I have a
co-op and
question
like
about
horde
Space
mode
Marines.
and stuff was cool.
I have a question about Space Marines. So you will know this. Like, so I was looking up the armies and stuff as I was trying to make some fun puns in the write up for the start of this episode. But so essentially, like, there's lots of the Space Marine armor, but depending on what color, are you like part of a completely different faction, or are they all together? Like, does it matter if you have blue armor or red armor or what? Like, there's the Black Templars, the Dark Angels, the Blood Angels, the Space Marines appear to be blue.
Sound like
But-
biker gangs.
Yeah.
They kind of are with their
The
symbols.
Hells Angels.
They kind of look like yeah.
But do they work in succession with one another, or they're like, no, we only work with other like red armored Space Marine dudes in the Blood Angels. We only work with Blood Angels.
Yeah, so in the lore, the Emperor is, the all-knowing and everything else, but he then has his armies, and they're divided up in legions, and that's what you're going to get with the different colors. So different legions have kind of like a different lore behind them or a different motivation. So Blood Angels tend to be a very combat-heavy army, and they're all red, and they're all under the Space Marine umbrella, but then there's the Blood Angels in the Space Marine umbrella. Then there's the Black Templars in the Space Marine umbrella.
Okay.
And then the blue ones are Ultramarines, and they're run by Raboot Gilliman, who's one of the sons of the Emperor.
Okay.
And they're really shooty based and very tactitional because he's a tactician genius is what he is. And Dark Angels are like this kind of very, very tough, strong, big, strong spear. They're the one that you always want on your side because they'll kill anything. And they're led by the Lion, who kind of looks like Tywin Lannister, which is pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sick.
That's cool.
Now, is as excited as you are for this game, is it going to be hard to go in similar to like I know we do when you go see a DC or like a Marvel movie to not just like pick it apart and be like, did they do it? You know, did they completely like boof on something, or
was it true to the source material?
Like you're talking about for the show, for Henry's show?
Well, either for the show or for the game. Like, is there going to be kind of an aspect of like, you know, fine tooth comb when you're looking through it? When you're playing?
GW has a pretty good handle on that stuff. They keep their lore pretty tight when it comes to even third-party stuff. Like they're like, no, it has to be like this because that's their IP that they want to protect, and they don't like it going too here and there. Like I heard some rumblings too with Prime pushing Henry to do things, and Henry's such a lore guy just naturally, right? That it's like no, and then GW was like, yeah, no, and then Prime's like, but we have the money, and then they're like, oh fuck. So there's like some kind of battle. It's delaying the project a little bit more, but I don't know exactly what happened, but it is. Because the lore was veering off from one of the production management teams, and Henry's not going to be happy about that, and he's just like, I won't do it then if it's like that, because look what happened with The Witcher.
I was going to say, look what happened with The Witcher. He was like,
got butchered.
You want to talk shit about this stuff? Then I'm out. I'm walking.
Then like girl wouldn't hug Siri. Like stop it, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like stop.
Get out of here.
Stop putting your arm on her. Like that's weird.
Yeah. It also just doesn't make sense to me because I'm like, when you talk Warhammer, I'm like, I can't even begin to scratch the surface on how much Warhammer lore and information exists. So it's just like, why would you make shit up? Like, because it was just easier? Like, why? Like, why go that route when you're just like, it's all right there. Like, you just got to kind of read for 10 minutes. Like,
use
right
it.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, just use it and use it as written. And it's, if this egg does get to be cracked open, it is endless. Like if they want more material, things are becoming like nostalgic and repeating stuff and everything else now in pop culture and in movies. This is like there's a freaking gold mine right here. Like there's so much material.
Yeah. It's really interesting that we haven't had anything like movie or TV series based in this universe, just because of how rich the source material is.
There's like a billion games that, like, as I looked it up, I'm like, there's more video games for this franchise than I ever would have guessed. Like that, I had no idea about.
Yeah, bring it in, right? Like same with like Marvel. Like if Marvel's gonna like just freaking nosedive because of Disney, it's like, why not switch to something that's already written, that's got crazy lore that you could just do whatever with, like where you could just follow it, and people would be, you would be doing fan service to Warhammer fans, and everyone else would be like, what is this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is wild.
And then more people probably start playing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the best thing. Right, I'm all about getting more people in the hobby, and even on Sundays at Kass, it won't be for the next 2 Sundays because there's a Calgary Stampede happening. But
there's no time for Warhammer.
Oh my God, I'm not sleeping now. Yeah. But on Sundays we play Warhammer. So even yesterday I was there. We had 2 tables going, and I played. I usually kind of a filler person, like if someone needs to play or if I'm teaching somebody. But we're there hanging out with people that bring board games too, and then we just kind of play games. But most of it's the Warhammer community, just because we all like drinking beer and playing Hammer, like Beer Hammer. It's all fun, and and we can get good practice in.
Kyle's interest was just peaked.
Yeah.
See the eyebrow.
You just spoke Kyle's love
beer.
language.
I like Hammer.
Yeah. And the server just comes up to you at your table and like, do you want another beer? Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Or you're losing. You're like, no, get out of here. Give me a shot.
Kyle, you need to make like an Oktoberfest themed Warhammer army, like lederhosen and like
there you go.
all carrying different craft beers.
You vastly overestimate my artistic ability. Vastly. You got all the artistic talent in the family trip, not me.
Sorry, you got two people in the podcast that can help you out.
Yeah.
Daryl and I are just like, I just want to paint some shit.
I don't want to buy any of it, but I'll paint for you.
Signing me up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that you're signing me up for this, like,
you're welcome.
Expensive hobby.
You're the tactician. It's fine. You'll be good.
Well, I'll tell you too. I think when I said there's lots of different types of games, I think I forgot one. And you said you guys are you're into sport guys too. There is one called Blood Bowl. Now it's football. It's football, man.
That's Warhammer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have if you're ever free or whatever, I have a set at that Kass too. You can come over and I can teach you.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I painted my there's humans and orcs in it, and I painted my humans like Wolverines just because I thought they looked good. So they're like yellow and blue armor. Yeah.
Daryl, can we get a Warhammer Blitz ball? Is that a
Oh yeah, let's go.
I've played the Blood Bowl video game.
I've played the game too.
Yeah. I didn't know that there was like a tabletop version of it, but that makes sense.
I'm gonna try that for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, speaking of video games, do you have like a favorite Warhammer video game that you've ever played? Or is there, in the community, is there one that's like considered like top tier?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be Space Marine 2 coming up, but it's not out yet, so that doesn't count. The one that I love the most is called Dawn of War. So it's an RTS.
Yes.
Yeah, it's unreal. So good. It's like 25 years old and it still holds up. I tried Dawn of War 2 and Dawn of War 3 and they suck. Dawn of War 1 is just the best. It's balanced. It's fun. It's very like, it feels like you're actually playing a tabletop game too, somewhat. Like, I just like it. Yeah, that's the one.
Excellent choice. Right. I've actually played that one. It's very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna find it.
I love how much Warhammer we're talking, but I gotta cut us off, or else we'll be here for another 3 hours. It's weird. Like every one of our episodes goes for could go for way longer if I didn't stop it. So basically, I'm the fun police. Okay.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Kass, cut for TV.
Yeah. Kass, once again, thank you so much for coming on. We not only appreciate you coming and talking to us about Warhammer, we also appreciate your bar hosting us when we, needed a place last minute to record a live podcast.
Thank you, sir.
It was perfect. So it worked out really well. And that's Kass Bar and Podcast.
Yep.
Downtown Calgary.
Yeah.
Great service. Great time.
Board games.
Great location too.
If you get drunk and want to record your own podcast, I got a sweet podcast move.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Yeah, how many offshoot podcasts there are?
Yeah, I get to do editing after, right? So
one episode podcast.
Let's get that out of there.
But yeah, so thank you so much for coming on. We hope you had a good time.
Oh, I had a great time. You guys you're right. I had a lot of fun and laughs. And thanks for bringing me on and letting me ramble about one of my passions. I could talk for days about this. I love it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the best. That's so good.
I think based on your podcast time, I think you have rambled for days.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that episode was good enough, guys.
It's good enough.
Good enough.
Awesome, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for more content. We also invite you to write an email or join us on Discord to talk about anything from our episodes or something else you would like to discuss in the future. Please subscribe to the Good Enough Gaming Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. And remember, we might not be great, but we are good enough.